I'm Mark Zaccaria. This is Common Sense. Welcome back. Today we are starting a new segment called the U.S. Federal Budget for Us Regular Folks. We're going to try and break the budget down into parts that we can all understand. Sometimes we will use visual aids to help, sometimes we'll use numbers, and sometimes we'll just talk. People learn and understand concepts in different ways, and we will present this information in as many ways as possible. As the source of the facts, we are going to be using the budget of the U.S. government as posted by the U.S. Government Printing Office and signed by President Barack Obama. We're going to be using the 2013 figures rather than the 2015 budget because at this time those figures are finished in the books. Anything later than that is not final yet. Today we want to cover three major segments of our budget. The amount of money that comes into the government through taxes, fees, and other forms of income, the revenue. Next, we want to show you how far that revenue gets us towards paying the obligations of the federal government. And lastly, we want to cover the portion of the budget that we have to borrow money for. First up is revenue. Our federal government collects money through taxes, fees, tolls, customs duties, and a number of other smaller sources of income. Not too surprising, the largest portion of that is income tax. In 2013, the federal government collected $1,316,405,000,000 in income tax. The next tax that is collected is a corporate tax. Here the federal government collects $242 billion. Next are excise taxes. That amounts to $200 billion. Miscellaneous taxes, fees, and tolls add up to right around $100 billion. That's a total of $1.6 trillion. It's a lot of money. So instead of having to deal with that figure, we are going to turn it into this bucket containing 1.6 pounds of dry red kidney beans. To understand any budget, you have to have some skills at bean counting. So, the total annual income for the U.S. government for operating expenses was right around $1.6 trillion in 2013. Here's where things get a little complicated. In 2013, the feds also collected $947 billion in Social Security payments. That's the combination of the FICA bite taken out of your paycheck each week and a matching amount paid into Social Security funds by your employer. Benefits paid out that year were only $827 billion. Guess what happened to the rest? Uncle Sam borrowed it. Some $113 billion to cover regular budget expenses. We will be using white beans to show borrowed money. So, if you're scoring at home, you'll notice a little discrepancy when we get around to balancing this all. Now, how do we spend it? First, we have hard obligations. Money we have to spend or people may die. Unemployment, health, Medicare, welfare, Social Security, veterans benefits, and the interest on our present debt. We are going to save getting into what each of these actually add up to for another show. But suffice it to say that these essential services added up to $2,417,949,000,000 in 2013. That's 2.4 pounds of beans. Oh look, that's all we have here. That leaves us a whopping surplus of no beans at all to pay for everything else. By the way, that includes national defense, the Departments of Energy, Commerce, Transportation, Justice, the EPA, IRS, HUD, and everything else the government does. In 2013, those services of our federal government cost $1,092,395,000,000, or about a pound and a tenth of beans. So it's time to look again at that special revenue source. We already talked a little bit about the Social Security Trust Fund. In 1966, this fund was moved into the General Revenue Fund. By the way, that's $947 billion in 2013. But we're borrowing some of these beans to cover non-Social Security expenses. That's why we have the white ones for money we have to pay back, so you can easily see the relationship. It's here that we want to introduce you to, well, you. You are a U.S. citizen, and being a U.S. citizen, your government finds it useful to take loans out in your name called Treasury bonds. To the rest of the world, U.S. Treasury bonds are some of the least risky investments in the world because they are backed by you. You have proven to be a very responsible borrower and have the highest credit rating in the world. Now, to make you feel better about taking your Social Security money, the government takes a loan out in your name and puts an IOU in place of the money that they took from you. So here we are with the total collected by our government to run itself. In 2013 was $2.77 trillion, or 2 3/4 pounds of beans, now divided between the income beans and the debt beans. And we're still a little over $1 trillion short. So where's that money going to come from? Remember those treasury bonds? The ones written in your name that were sold to foreign powers, many of which are not our friends? That's where the money comes from. There you have it, folks. A quick review may be in order. Our government collects taxes, fees, and your Social Security money that amounts to $2.4 trillion. It then takes the remainder of your Social Security taxes by borrowing it from you and having you be the person responsible to pay it back. It then borrows from anyone who will pay them back, or who will write them a check for the remainder. And in the end, that's what you owe Social Security and the rest of the debt incurred. You went further into debt by $1.2 trillion in 2013, actually more than 1/3 of the money spent by our government. As I said earlier, this analysis is based on the budget of the United States of America, signed by President Barack Obama and posted on www.gpo.gov/budget. That's a lot of beans, folks. Especially if our debt is called and we have to settle up quickly. Look at all those white ones. Now do you know or see why fiscal conservatives keep claiming there's a problem?